Hi everyone, welcome back to a new Threat Researchers Live. Hey Daniel, how are you doing today?
Hey man, pretty good. And you?
Good. So this is episode 22 already. We're in June 30th, 2022. The last Thursday of the month. This time came out very well. It's the last day of the month, not only the last Thursday. And oh Daniel, happy Kaseya weekend or supply chain weekend, or how do I have to call it this weekend?
Good luck weekend.
Be good, yeah, maybe good luck weekend or stay on your back feet weekend.
Yeah, you never know. It's just, I think a lot of us in America are wondering if it's going to happen again, but with all the current situations over in Eastern Europe, anything could happen at this point.
So first, an announcement before we get into all the news of the last month. We set up a couple of new social media so that you can get information easier from us and also can interact with us easier. So we have the Radware Research Twitter, which is content only by Daniel and by myself. So that's content relating to everything that we do in research. We also have Radware as a Twitter account. Do not forget that one. That's more broad information about the company and all the assets and information and blogs that the whole company is publishing. We will be focusing on research mainly. Then we have two Telegram channels. One is Radware Research, which is a channel. It's a one-way channel. You can only get information. Whatever you say will not be accepted in that channel. But then we also created a Radware Research chat. So for those who want to chat, join the chat. For those who don't like to have hundreds of Telegram messages per day and have your counter go up and have notification every 10 seconds, come to the Radware Research where we only push information when it's relevant. In the chat, yeah, there's chat going on. So there's nice
Talk about
people
almost
in that chat.
anything and everything that's respectful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, respect is. We should put that as a banner on top, like an image.
We'll see how it goes. We'll see if it goes the way of hack forums or if we're gonna have a professional environment.
Yeah. How many people we need to ban in the first 2 weeks?
We haven't banned any in our first month, so this is
Uh,
a great start. We have a couple good
yeah.
users in there providing some great information and resources too. So
Yeah.
hop in, join the conversation,
Links,
share some information.
ideas,
All of
hot things that are too early to share in broader media, things that we're looking at, things that we see that we're not sure. Sometimes we see some stuff we don't know. Are we the only ones who see this? Is there somebody else who sees it? So join us and have a good time. The disclaimer, as usual, before we get into the content.
we should put that in a Telegram channel.
Yeah. And that's for today's content. So we, again, yeah, a packed episode full of news. Every month seems to be accelerating in terms of news and with a good portion of drama on top of it, I would say. So we're gonna cover today along the next hour or hour and a half, OpsPatuk, OpRussia, Op something KillNet, IT Army of Ukraine, KillNet, HackNet. Yeah, those were also in the news. Yeah, we're gonna talk about China because it seems to be that a lot of people forgot about China. Yeah, when you're narrowing in on a specific conflict and the media is flooded with messages from both sides of that conflict, there's some others who might take good use of that period of distraction, I would say. So for China, the road is pretty much way open. But CISA remembered. So not only China, by the way, there's also still North Korea. So let's be clear-headed. What we are talking about, most of our episodes are almost like, yeah, we're only talking about the war and what's happening there because that's what you see most in the media. This has not replaced whatever we talked about before. this has just come on top of whatever we talked about before and whatever is happening in the threat landscape that we used to know before. So it's not like it's a new threat landscape out there. No, it's just an additional part on top of the threat landscape. So that's something that we need to be aware of, and we should not forget. We're just prioritizing it because it's more important at this moment. But all the other stuff that was going on before is still out there.
Doesn't say we have like another 18 episodes of non-Russian Ukrainian conflict content.
Yeah.
But you know, it's definitely interesting times where we all have tunnel vision, these unprecedented times, and you know, everybody's really focused on the Russian Ukrainian situation. But like you said, the Chinese, North Korean, all those situations are definitely flaring up. Hacktivists are back, like they've
India, Iran. So
yeah.
there's lots of things happening.
So it's a pretty interesting one. So
Yeah.
I think we have a pretty full load here of
Yeah.
content to go through, and
Yeah, so
people
and
like it.
even besides the war, we talk about Roe versus Wade, your favorite topic, Daniel. I know it's not controversial for you.
Not at
Zero,
all in the United States. Not at all.
0 days and vulnerabilities as usual. The botnets, takedowns, raids, convictions, all
My
that fun
favorite.
stuff. Yeah, all that fun stuff comes at the second part. The first part is all about the war. Except for Dragonforce Malaysia and Daniel, I'm gonna let you go into this. You wrote the alert on that one.
Yeah, so we've been following this group for quite a while now, a couple of years, and they're I would say a pretty advanced hacktivist group. I wouldn't say they're an APT level, but they have a very active forum. They share a lot of information there, which is useful for some threat actors. Other ones can't figure it out, which is interesting. You know, you see the mixed breed of those that can adapt and those that just can't figure it out. But anyways, the group is targeting India at the moment, and it's a kind of weird situation. Basically, a political party spokesperson came out and insulted the Prophet Muhammad. As a result, Muslim-based hacktivists in Malaysia, part of the Dragonforce Malaysia group, have started launching deface, DDoS attacks, and data leaks against almost anybody and everybody in India. It's pretty much been indirect targeting. It's kind of weird. Basically, what they're doing is an old school anonymous tactic where you know they're out there on social media talking about the campaign, but inside their forum is a little bit different, I would say, because you have threat actors that are sharing exploits and how to leverage them for specific campaigns. You also have people that are talking about how to use different DDoS tools, which is showing that there's a progression in the hacktivist landscape. But needless to say, it's a pretty severe campaign. A lot of India has been affected. A lot of takedowns have happened. But there are also a lot of like medium-sized organizations. You don't see a lot of major organizations being hit, but that's typical of hacktivists. They usually don't have the ability to target well-protected assets. They usually target middle-range protected assets or assets that are not protected at all. So very interesting campaign. But this is not the only campaign from the group. There was OpsPatuk, which was targeting Israel just a few months ago. And then they had another operation between called Raids Without Mercy, where they're still targeting Israel with massive DDoS attacks. So definitely a group to pay attention to and follow over the next few months.
Yeah, fairly young group. It was 2 years ago that they came with OpsPatuk.
Yeah, they were the replacement to Ops Israel, as Anonymous kind of like filtered out over the last 5 years. They definitely stepped up to kind of take over that place, and they've been the main threat on a yearly basis to Israel. They run the yearly operations where they come back at the same time range and they launch attacks. Other hacktivists are really reactionary, where they don't have these yearly campaigns, but Dragonforce Malaysia is really kind of taken to that tactic procedure that we saw from Anonymous.
Yeah, they also have a very close group. They are doing fun events like esports events. They have lots of forums where they chat in. As you said, they almost run a hackers forum now because they have those tutorials that are getting much better quality. TikTok, they have TikTok competitions.
Yeah, that's why I say it's a really weird group, right? Like they talk about advanced tactics and techniques, but then they have like these really bad offsite slips where they're on TikTok and they're filming in their house, and you can see the homes outside and their setup and their computers, and it's very strange to see the new wave of hacktivists, but still a viable threat.
And amazing designers.
Yeah, that's another great thing is they're we didn't include it this one. I think we included in 2 presentations ago with OpsPatuk,
Yeah.
but they have graphic designers that make these amazing target announcements of who they're about to attack. And, they really love the visuals.
Yeah, I think that this might be the new generation of hacktivist groups.
Yeah, really. So another one I wanted to talk about is OpRussia, and I didn't really want to get into OpRussia so much because we're going to get into it a little bit later. But in general, OpRussia is Anonymous's response to the Russian-Ukrainian war. They are going about it in a typical anonymous fashion with tweet storms and DDoS and all kinds of chaos. But one of the things I found personally interesting about OpRussia was this content that was going around. So was it the return of Puck's return, and that account is now suspended, had posted this content, which, in the day we would call this new blood content, where it was just like general content put onto a pastebin-like site that talked about different DDoS tools you use or VPNs you use or how to get around certain features, which is generally knowledge like to give out to the new users. But in this case, with OpRussia, this is a new paste. So this is new content from Anonymous regarding OpRussia. They've literally copy pasted Radware's content. This is something I found really funny is that they went back to the op killing bay and all the old anonymous operations that we covered through our alerts, and they literally copy pasted all the tools that we had covered that Anonymous had used in the past. Now, while that's fine, like, yeah, that's kind of interesting, cover the tools Anonymous used in the past, teach the new kids what tools we used in the past and things like that. They did not remove our little marketing advertisement piece at the bottom, which I found personally hilarious.
Yeah, it's actually good that they give some tips on effective DDoS protection. When we come at you, this is what you should do.
I know. And the funny thing about it is like they went through and removed Radware at some points in the context and text. Like it's very strange, but
search and replace.
They kept it. Yeah, they kept it. Effective DDoS protection essentials and protective WAF essentials. I think it's kind of funny, and it just shows the side. I want to bring this up to compare, the difference between Dragonforce Malaysia and Anonymous, right? So Dragonforce Malaysia has this forum, and they're sharing information. They're pretty well active. When you look at Anonymous, they're copy pasting text from like 7 years ago without really any consideration. What's up, Nexus? We can say hi here. So yeah, just interesting seeing that. Yep, we're gonna get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, scrolling too fast. Yeah, it's another activist group, but this one a little bit more linked to the government, right?
A little bit, definitely.
And they, now we have a confirmed attack. We saw them already advertise many targets, and there has been many attacks going on, but this one was actually one that that was pretty impacting, given that they had to delay the speech of Putin for 2 hours.
I was gonna say, first the IT army delays the shipment of liquor in the country, and then they delay Putin's speech. That's well, bravo, well target.
Yeah, and that's actually one that is the political impact, right? That forum is well known. That's St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. It was not only delaying the speech; it was actually so they attacked the forum, and the whole operational system of that forum was just not working. So they could not validate tickets and entries. So, and that was why they had to delay the speech by 2 hours. Something
which is interesting, right? Like, I just want to bring in a little thing about like scanning tickets not being able to get in. The last time I actually personally experienced that was in 2018 in Korea at the Olympics, where you have these massive attacks that take out digital infrastructure such as ticketing, and no one can get in. There's no physical tickets given out to anybody. It's kind of interesting to see that.
But that was a good target. Well done.
Definitely good target. And another thing about that, a little tidbit that was from attribution on the Russian side is they claimed the attack was 140 gigabits per second, which is impressive. If that is true, and that is what the IT army is capable of generating, Anonymous plus, right? Like Anonymous back in the day wasn't even producing attacks of this scale with their hive net and everybody hanging out together and organized DOS. This is kind of interesting, and this is notable to see if it actually rings true with the group.
Yeah, well, the 140 gigabits per second is not that amazing. It's more amazing if you can sustain it for a longer period. So that is because we see regularly more than 100 gigs, but after 5 minutes they're gone.
But those are also coming
That's
like the general point though is like this is an organized operation, right? It's state sponsored, of course, being the IT army, but this is a group of people that are sitting on a Telegram channel, trying to get people to join in and recruit them and launch these attacks at certain times that
yeah, well, yeah,
are producing massive impacts.
they have some infrastructure. We discussed it last time, and if you didn't
Yeah.
watch it, go watch the previous episode. Because there we are discussing the new botnet that they made, so this new tool that everyone can install that is orchestrated centrally, because that was one of their problems. There was too much factions out there, so everyone was doing their own thing and at their own time, and there's no impact if all that traffic is spread out over a longer period. So yeah, I'm looking at the chat. We have Killer on board. Hi, Killer. You're a hacker. That's good to know.
3 million devices.
We will have to chat after. You just check the
I
first
don't
part of.
I don't have the book around me, but I have these books, Proof of Concept or Get the F Out. I want to see the 3 million devices. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Probably can take out a lot with 3 million.
So the IT army took steps to orchestrate better how the attacks are being performed and to bring everybody together to attack the same target at the same time, which is much more impacting than having everyone running around in chaos and doing all kinds of stuff. They also have Disbalancer that's following them, so there will be a report later on that Daniel will refer to that is written by a person in Switzerland. Really good report about the IT army. Those forums are copying each other. So there's several Telegram forums. You have the IT army, but you also have Disbalancers. You have hackers forum. So they all copy messages from one to another. So those messages are propagating into a network of Telegram accounts, and there's different groups coming together. And Disbalancer also have a pretty capable tool if enough people are joining in. And there has been influencers who have been telling their subscribers on YouTube to follow them and to install that tool. So yeah, I think that's one of the first evidences that their new strategy of orchestrating and aligning noses is working fairly well. I think we will hear more about that. Yeah, I'm going to try to ignore the chat for now. So the IT army also in another effort to increase their capabilities, they put out a vacancy. So they're hiring, and they're looking specifically for DDoS specialists, which fits very well the narrative, because what we have been seeing from them mostly were DDoS attacks. So it was on their Telegram as well as on their websites. And as usual, if you need access, the links are down below below the video. You will find all the links that have.
The interesting thing about this is that a lot of reports out there are suggesting that the IT army is actually losing support. That they had this massive incoming of volunteers at the beginning of the invasion, but the problem is that DDoS is really not effective in a war, right? You take down a site for a few hours, and then Putin comes up 2 hours later and gives a speech. Your win is very short-lived, right? And that's the problem, is that the people that are joining this group, they want to have like this resolve, and they want the war to end because they DDoS someone. They realize the war is not ending because they DDoS someone, so they leave. And that's why the IT army is allegedly in this position of looking for new recruits to come in and download their software and launch these tools, because they are not getting the support that they once had. Kind of interesting, but we'll see how that rolls out. This chat's really off on today.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the new guy Killer is introducing himself.
Yeah, definitely a hardcore one here.
Yeah,
He's literally made up everything from the darknet. We kill people. Every single darknet murder site's turned out to be a scam. This guy is so
Yeah,
hard. It's hilarious.
let's ignore that chat for now. We will come back to it. And as I said, come to our Telegram. There's plenty of fun to be had over there.
Yeah. Come
uh,
post your jokes there.
yeah, moving to the other side of the fence, if I can say it like so, or the curtain, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
DDoS attacks on Lithuania. So recently there was another show of power by the, let's say, the other side of IT army. It's KillNet. So KillNet announced that they were gonna attack Lithuania because Lithuania banned the transit of goods to a Russian enclave, which is called Kaliningrad. That sits between Lithuania and Poland. It's like that small piece of Russia that sits there. I don't know how it came there, but apparently it is there. It's not the only one that where people are traversing, or Russia is traversing other countries, but now Lithuania followed the sanctions, and they banned goods like coal, metals, construction material, and also advanced technology. And that apparently makes up like 50% of Kaliningrad's imports. So if they block that, they are pretty much closing that country's economy and yeah, the way people live. If you don't have coal and metal, it will be hard to live on. So and that resulted in KillNet coming back with DDoS attacks on Monday, aiming at Lithuania's secure data transfer network, which is also that's one of the networks that was built to withstand war and other crises. So that's also a show of force, I think, from KillNet. So we should not underestimate the other side. There has been talks that KillNet was just a group with false promises and that nothing came out, and they were more in a skids war with Anonymous, and we will see that operation later on. That's the one that I didn't want to fully name because it has an offensive word in it. But that shows the level of people that were involved in that war. But apparently, the KillNet members don't care too much, and they just went on with business. Although they never really were directly involved in attacks on Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken. That was more HackNet that was involved in those. So HackNet
Yeah.
is the other part of the pro-Russian activists that so KillNet and HackNet are the two most prominent one, or the ones that you hear the most, let's say like that.
They're also like in a reactionary position too, where where IT armies targeting specifically Russia, you don't hear too much of HackSnet and KillNet targeting Ukraine. You see them
No.
more reacting to the hacktivists and the other problems that are going along with the Russian-Ukrainian war.
Yeah, I also think from their perspective, they're not directly at war with Ukraine. It's more the Western world. It's more about the sanctions. It's more about impacting the people of Russia, the citizens of Russia, and that's what they announced also in the beginning. Although that they have been recently linked to the nation states, but we will come back to that as well. So.
Yeah.
KillNet announced those attacks, and they did so in a video on Monday morning. So that video was on their Telegram, where they announced that they were gonna attack Lithuania. And also following that, the NKSC, which is the security center, the CERT of Lithuania, also called for basically a shields up. Because yeah, they know that there's more to be expected there. There can be cases of destructive ransomware attacks. So this time was DDoS attacks, but we also know that ransomware and wipers can be part of those campaigns. So for everyone in Lithuania, there's now a shields up enforced that everybody should be ready. Not that they shouldn't have been ready before.
I mean, that's a general
there's
problem with all
nothing.
these shield up
Yeah.
messages, right?
So, and that's anonymous opfuck KillNet. I said it. I hope I don't get banned now. It was. Oh, and oh, I see now that I did not edit it correctly instead of op. It's
It happens.
The P fell away. Okay, good stuff. That was a last minute change that I did. So yeah, that's anonymous, or one of the legions or factions or chapters, how they want to call themselves, from Anonymous that go specifically after KillNet. So every time KillNet does something reactionary to that, they do a post. So after those attacks and then getting aware of those attacks, they just doxed or put a photo that's supposed to dox the members of KillNet. It's not the first time. Anonymous already doxed them. There is already records out there of who's behind KillNet, and yeah, it's pretty obvious to find out who's behind KillNet because KillNet was a company before it actually became a group. So they had a website, they had business, they had some ties with the Russian government in the past, or at least the guy who owned KillNet. They were operating a botnet and selling botnet access. Not 3 million like our friend Killer on the channel here, but it was quite a consistent botnet apparently. So and then that's fresh in because the day after.
Abandoned.
So the day after the attacks on Lithuania, there were DDoS attacks on Norway, and this time, well, it was not confirmed who was behind it or why they did it, but the Norwegian media did report that the ambassador from Moscow was summoned to the foreign ministry for Wednesday, and that was about a complaint over Russian supplies being prevented from transiting through Norway to an Arctic Russian coal mining settlement. So that's again a passageway that apparently was blocked off. So and yeah, followed by DDoS attacks on that was on Tuesday, I believe. Yeah, it was on Tuesday. So across those 24 hours, several authorities and also private companies were targeted by DDoS attacks, and that was confirmed by the Norwegian National Security Authority, and they also seem to be saying that it's a pro-Russian group that might be behind the attacks. Well, I think that the evidence lines up and it pretty much follows the same objective or narrative like with the Lithuanian attacks, just a day later. So and it's not that it's an exception. It's not like we didn't say before that this wouldn't happen. We said that everybody who's involved in sanctions might expect to see some repercussion from Russia, and vice versa. Everybody who does not follow the sanctions or who still does business in Russia might see repercussions coming from Western hacktivists. So it's the whole world. So whatever you choose, you're on the wrong side of the tracks. Just stay low. Now this is the one that we referred to about a U.S. security company finding a link between pro-Russian hacktivists and the Kremlin. Of course, that link was already there with KillNet, but I find the link to be weak because saying that somebody was in the KGB or you know, many people go in the military because they have to go in the military, and after the military, they go into a private life, right? So,
I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there's many people in the InfoSec community that served in the NSA, Mossad. You name a government agency, and they might still be active working for a security company. So that is weak attribution, saying like, oh, someone used to be or may have been. The real question comes down to is if they're active or not, right?
Yeah. So that was about KillNet, but they were talking about HackNet, but now they found that the tactics and operations were overlapping between HackNet and KillNet, and I would say that is also a weak link because they are both hacktivists with the same objective. So, and we see that with the IT army of Ukraine of Ukraine as well. Whenever they post something, that message is distributing through the other Telegram channels and fora that are out there. And yeah, so everybody's following everybody, and everybody's supporting everybody who's going after the same case. So I would not say that because their objectives and their missions have been aligned, that this is a good reason to suppose that they're working together. Of course, they're on the same side and they will support each other. I don't think you need to say anything wrong about HackNet to a KillNet member and vice versa. They will defend each other. So, but anyway. And that's also what the US already said before, the US intelligence, and there were CISA reports on that, that HackNet and others like KillNet, they pose real threats to critical infrastructure. So, and that's mostly because they are working in a response to that unprecedented economic impact that comes from the sanctions from the West. There's not only
Well, one
you,
of the
yeah,
I was gonna say one of the interesting things about the HackSnet thing is, everybody said KillNet, HackSnet, they're hacktivists, they're not connected with the government, blah blah blah. CSA put out an alert, and HackSnet made the naughty list. The HackSnet launched a DDoS attack against Bradley Airport in the United States, so
yeah.
they have crossed that line. It's interesting when you start looking into these groups and the affiliations of who they represent and what they are targeting. It gets to be a very interesting subject.
Yeah, but there's a difference between linked and having the same objectives and sponsored by. I think that sponsored by takes it to another level, because then
Well,
they
I mean,
have
okay,
access to other
let
tools and other capabilities.
well look at it like this way, right? So, IT Army is nation state. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is government sponsored. It
Yeah.
is That's what it is. And look at their ability. That it's really interesting to look at that. Is that this is what a state sponsored group is doing? They're using death by 1,000 needles and simple DOS scripts off of GitHub, organizing a channel, launching attacks against targets in Russia, right? And you
Yeah,
start
yeah.
looking at like KillNet and HackSnet and what they're doing.
Well,
Very reactionary.
it
It
it's still not the level of a sandworm. Sandworm who are supposedly behind some of the bigger botnets that we saw out there that have been taken down by the government. Um, Front on one of
Yeah.
them, then the other one was VPN filter, and then what was the last one again? I forgot the name.
Oh, you're talking. Oh man,
So many botnets, too many.
Cyclops Blink.
Yeah,
Cyclops Blink.
yeah, Cyclops Blink. So that's what Sandworm was behind. So if they would be, that's a sponsored group, right? Well, sponsored.
Right.
That's
But it's another point that we'll get into a little bit later. A lot of these government agencies around the world have been screaming cyberwolf, and they're saying the worst are coming and shields up. And as you said, that people should have been already in a shields up position. I don't know why we had to tell people to get prepared when they should have been prepared 10 years ago. But it's a very strange situation. Let's just put it that way.
so yeah, and Hacknet also immediately responded to that article. They were fairly quick with their response, and I find them response to be atypical for a group of skids that are typically operating behind some of those hacktivists, or typically operate the channel, or flood, not operate, I mean flood the channel. That's how I should say it, because the IT Army channel, for example, it's operated by the Ukraine government. It was created by the vice president, but sometimes the people that come on that channel and that not activate, but how you do animate that channel, are not the right people. When you go talk to them, you don't get serious answers. You get strange replies. You get shouted at in bad words. Now here on if you go to Hacknet's Telegram, there's not a lot there. Same for KillNet. They're not that active on their official Telegram. They only post whenever there's something important going on, and they responded. And yeah, they said that they were basically they were disappointed because they were not expecting a serious infosec company that they have been looking at and always been respecting, that they came out with such an allegation. So that's what Hacknet was responding to it. Um, I think yeah, there are some weak links there. But that said, I think that everybody operates for his government. So whether they're links or not, they are fighting the same fight their governments are fighting, right? So it's not like they go against their government and they're turning against the government. No, they're fighting alongside the government. Does that mean that they are linked? Not immediately.
Yeah, like I said, there are a lot of people in the InfoSec industry that have worked in the military complex and are currently working in our industry. And the question is, are they active or not? You know, these guys behind XakNet and KillNet could have very well have been FSB, GRU, whatever, and this is what they're doing on their own personal time. And there could or could not be someone telling them what to do, which is that's the hardest part of attribution, right? Like, how do you say for sure that they're state sponsored? Well, we know that IT Army is state sponsored because the government's come out and said that we've created this, and they've owned the mission to it. KillNet, XakNet, we're not too sure yet, but I'm sure the information is going to come rolling out as time goes on, as all information usually does. But this is kind of interesting here, leading into the other side of the curtain here. Ukraine is accusing Russia of hacking non-military targets, and I'm trying not to laugh through this, but preliminary conclusions of the Russian-Ukrainian war were detailed in the Atlantic Council by Yuri, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. He's the head of Ukrainian State Service and Special Communication and Information Protection, which is like the group that's also behind the IT Army. But in this article, he is talking about the invasion unleashed by Vladimir Putin is the world's first full-scale cyber war. He might be right on that. There's a lot of people involved. It's just not inside the country anymore. You have Americans that are hacking for IT Army. You have Americans that are hacking for all these other groups, and everybody's involved. And it will take many years to fully digest the lessons. That's not debatable at all either. It's very true. That's going to happen. But hackers are forming an unofficial branch of modern Russian offensive capabilities. So he gets in the article talking about how the Wagner Group and other militant, like actual physical kinetic warriors, do things for the Russian government that, you know, basically what Pascal's talking about. You don't know if these groups are being told by the government to go fight the war and kill these people, or if they're doing it on their own. But they are ex-military, they are in a unit, they are attacking. So it becomes very confusing about who may or may not be behind these attacks. But he goes further, saying that Russian hackers appear to have no boundaries, targeting non-military infrastructure. I'm going to call BS on this one, and I'm going to put my name on it too, because I have the facts and receipts behind this. The IT Army has been targeting pharmaceuticals, food delivery services. The IT Army is literally targeting non-military targets. So,
it's just calling each other. So the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. It's a very weird situation. I think
it's also an information war. Let's not forget, it's an information war as well that's going on. So whatever is a good opportunity to blame the other side for things they did, even though you do the same things, doesn't matter.
For sure, but both sides are targeting non-military targets. Russia absolutely. And Ukraine, they are both doing horrible things as far as DDoSing non-military targets. They really need to figure out their targeting. But as you said, this is an information, this is all psychological warfare. They want to attack the citizens so the citizens can feel the pain. I get that, but there will be consequences to those actions at the end of this. So that's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah. Just remains to be seen how this is going to end, but yeah.
Yeah, and so this is the interesting thing. If you want to understand the perspective where I come from, and you want to understand just general perspective of the cyber war, I highly suggest reading this report. Stefan over at the Center of Security Studies at ETH Zurich wrote a very detailed report about how we all pretty much feel about this war. It's a very detailed report about the IT Army. He really dives into the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by the group, and also how the government and other third-party organizations are involved in the IT Army and some of the things. And he has a statement, and this is a really important statement to me, is that overall, both Kiev and the Ukrainian IT community at large have shown the world what digital diplomacy on steroids looks like. Their conduct has collapsed entire pillars of existing legal framework. This is so spot on. The IT Army, as goodwill and good-natured as it is, the fact that Western leaders and governments have turned a blind eye to what they're doing has collapsed almost all of our pillars. All of our legal frameworks are gone. You know, for years we talked about how DDoS was a crime.
Yeah.
I mean, and in January, the Ukrainian government was arresting people for launching DDoS attacks. They are literally hiring people to launch DDoS attacks for them now. That's a 6 month, what? Not even 6 months. Inside 5 months,
Their
they literally went
prime
from
sponsor
arresting.
was a booter.
Yeah, don't spoil my stuff yet, but but yeah, it's really interesting to see how the IT army is conducting themselves. As Pascal mentioned, there's a lot of information psychological operations going on. They're trying to convince everybody that they are the good guys and they are doing the good thing. But at the end of the day, when the war's over and all the academics and all the researchers come in and they start reviewing and going over what happened, this is not going to be a pretty mark in Ukraine's history. The IT army is targeting non-military infrastructure, which they can come back from. You know, that's the thing, is like people can make mistakes and come back from it. It's a question of like, are they going to continue to push this, and how is it going to have an impact on our threat landscape in the future? But I highly recommend reading this. It's pretty long-winded, but it's a very detailed write-up.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how we're gonna revert all this once the conflict is over. It will
I
depend
don't
how it will also depend on how it ends, which way, or yeah, it's never gonna end well for both parties. That's impossible. It's probably not even gonna end well for anyone. But once it ends, what's gonna happen? This is not gonna be the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. At the end of this, I would love to see how the Ukrainian government justifies targeting who they targeted. Right? I would love to see the Russian government justifying who they target. It's both sides. I'm not throwing shades at one or the other. It's equal, right? If you're going to engage in a war, you target military infrastructure. You don't target non-military infrastructure, and that's the problem. Is that both these groups, specifically IT Army, is leading the way of destroying our framework and our legal infrastructure that we have set up. For years, we talked about DDoS as a crime, and still we arrest people to this day for launching DDoS attacks. But now it becomes a question of, was it socially right, or was it morally aligned with some kind of social topic? It's a very gray area.
Yeah, well, I think at some point in history the playbooks would have been rewritten, and this is clearly the war that is writing the initial playbooks for cyber war, how cyber war could be fought. It's
And
gonna
this is
be
why I think it's completely fair
one
to
of
say
the
that this is the first
examples.
cyber war.
Yeah. The other ones were just typical tactics and playbooks that have been used for a long time over and over again, and just small blips on the radar. But this one has been affecting everyone's life. There's not one citizen in the world that was not affected either by those attacks, or by joining those attacks, or by being influenced, or having an opinion on those attacks. So yeah, that changed a lot of visibility, and how we perceive the legal system, and the framework, the legal framework that's been put in place, and yeah. So yeah.
You know, there's a great question that was asked the other day on Reddit. Is it legal to DDoS a darknet marketplace that sells drugs, killer? And the topic was kind of interesting. People were, you know, of course, there's the emotional response, of course, that you should be allowed to take down a criminal enterprise. But someone brought in this really good question. It's like, okay, so if you know a murderer has murdered someone, can you go murder the murderer? No, you can't. So the same thing applies to cyber war, right? Just because you know people are doing wrong doesn't give you the power to go be a vigilante and stop it. You know, there are legal frameworks, there are courts, there are systems that we go through. It's just strange. People are just immediately jumping and throwing the legal frameworks out of the window and going straight to, I believe this, and this is the way it's going to happen, and it's legal because I say so. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one.
Okay, let's move on, or we have to rename the show to Judge
I've been waiting for you to
Judy.
move the slide. I don't know what the next slide is,
Judge
dude.
Judy, yeah. Oh no, yeah. Okay. Bring on the
Yeah,
controversy. Yeah.
some people don't like my topics I talk about, but you can't filter me. I'm going to talk
Oh
the
yeah,
truth.
I
And
can.
that's the thing is,
I
let
can
me just put
absolutely
this.
filter you. I can mute you on Zoom, my friend.
And then I'll hire Killer to DDoS the stream. It'll be great. He's
Yeah.
got 3
Okay.
million bots, dude. You
Yeah.
think YouTube's taking that? But here's the thing. Like, let me just make this point. I'm not expressing my like personal opinion and trying to, you know, back it up.
Yeah,
this
be
is what people are
objective.
talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
We're being objective. We're covering the news, right? We cover it with a little bit of an opinion, but the things that we cover, the IT army targeting non-military infrastructure, that's not me. I'm not making it up. That's what they're doing. And the world will have to come to a moment of talking about that. If it's now or later, will be decided later. But into this subject, which other people don't want to hear about, the US Cyber Command allegedly conducted cyber operations in Ukraine. So a few weeks ago, we had the General Paul Nakasone. Nakasone.
It's one of your people. You should know to read his name, no?
I'm horrible at names. I really, hey, you is about as far as I go with people. But anyways, he's the commander of the United States Cyber Command. He's also director of the NSA. And he told Sky News, which is kind of a weird news agency to go talk to. You think he'd go to like Bloomberg or something. But anyways, he told Sky News that the United States had conducted cyber operations against Russia in support of Ukraine, which of course caused a lot of problems. Specifically, Biden had come out and said, we will not directly engage in this conflict. So someone's lying here, or someone's playing a game. But either way, a few days later, the Russian Foreign Ministry warned that there would be no winners in a direct cyber clash of states, which is true. I don't think anybody wants to see the United States and Russia get into a cyber battle because we might not have the internet at the end of the day. But anyways, Kim Zetter, an amazing reporter, she really dove into this and she wanted to know exactly what this means. And it kind of got a little bit more confusing as she dug into it. So basically, what this guy had said is that we conducted OCO, offensive cyber operations, but at the same time, he was using the words hunt forward, which are completely two different tactics in cyber war or whatever you want to call it. Offensive cyber operations is degrading, destroying, disrupting computers, right? It's actually a physical use of force or digital use of force. Where hunting forward is more like Pascal and I are debating about the exact definition of this. It's like OSINT, but not OSINT, right? It's
intelligence gathering.
Yeah, it's a process of discovery and intelligence, right? It's going into systems, looking for vulnerabilities and writing reports, observe and report.
What everybody has been doing since the first computer was invented, by the way.
So the speculation in the statement comes down to, did we actually use force against Russia, or did we simply help Ukraine by discovering vulnerabilities or intelligence that might lead to them having an advantage, right? So very, very interesting statements. But I wanted to bring this up just to show that it's not just Ukraine playing games. It's not just Russia playing games. The United States is playing games too. If they're going out and making these statements, it's for a reason. It's usually to shake the tree and to see how people respond, right? And this could be dangerous. This could lead to a runaway situation where a simple hacktivist group like KillNet and IT Army could ignite a situation. I mean, we have a powder keg right now. It's primed to explode. And it's just a question of like, who's going to be the one that sets it off? And when you have statements like this come out from government agencies, it doesn't help anything. I mean, I understand it helps from a military standpoint of understanding the response that you get. But in general, this is only aggravating the situation, especially the viewers. And with so many hacktivists and independent people involved in this situation, when US Cyber Command comes out and says we conducted cyber operations, people that might be launching DDoS attacks against Russia illegally in support might feel a little bit more justified in their actions when they hear a political leader say something like this.
Which brings us
to... Yeah, it brings me to a statement I had published in 2021 that had to deal with addressing cyber attacks as proxy for nations.
Never mind. If you want to skip, just skip forward 5 seconds. This is Daniel's moment. Let him have it.
I'll be on mute for the next 20 minutes. Don't worry. But I had said this in 2021 that it is expected nation states will continue to advance their political agendas. Very obvious via cyber, of course, right? But it's going to become increasingly difficult to monitor, detect, mitigate, report, and attribute nation state activity as a response to irresponsible behavior by nation states in cyberspace. And it's kind of funny is that I wrote this in 2021 thinking, more or less like just people renting out services from criminals. But here we are going into July 2022, and you literally see government agencies that have started up hacktivist groups. And it's becoming very difficult for us to actually monitor, detect, mitigate, report, and attribute these attacks. Prime example of what Pascal's talking about, KillNet. We don't know who's behind them. And it's becoming very, very difficult when you see groups like HacksNet launching DDoS attacks against critical US infrastructure. Where do you put them on this? And also, allegedly, at the beginning of the war, the GRU rented Catan or used Catan, which is a very interesting thing. They are using an IoT botnet. So very interesting. I think that going into the rest of 2022 is going to be a very dicey situation. That
yeah, especially the confusing part for the researchers.
Well, I mean, you just
There's
think about how
so
complex
much
this is.
things happening, so much complexity. Nobody sees, even the people who have more insight than us, they're probably already scratching their heads for a long time.
Well, this is how close we are to the edge, right? A lot of people predict that we're going to see a Chinese-Taiwan conflict in the second half of 2022. Now, I just want to say this, is that what happens when you have an IT army and a KillNet of Taiwan and China operating at the same time as IT army and KillNet? It's a two-front war type situations that we can deal with one cyber conflict, I think, as a community. But if we see two massive cyber conflicts flare up, I think in general, the cybersecurity community is going to have a really hard time dealing with, as I say, irresponsible behavior in cyberspace.
Yeah, there was an article, I forgot from who. I have to look it up. We will make a slide of it for the next one. But an exchange of information between Russian hackers, so Russian state affiliated hackers and the Chinese ones. That said that Chinese are not that sophisticated. Russians are much more sophisticated. But Chinese, once they do something, they disseminate their information. They have such a big community and so much power to people power to work with it. So if you bring both of them together, and that's what's happening now, there's information flowing from one side to the other side. Might be educating them, giving them certain tools, because yeah, what tools have the Chinese been using? It's one tool that came out in the 60s, and they're still using it. It's one backdoor that somebody wrote, a clever Chinese guy, and they keep on reusing that same tool as a backdoor. But if serious tools are coming out of a country that has the capabilities, and apparently that information is flowing, so I have to look up where that article is, but that might be one thing to be looking out for in the future.
Oh yeah. Okay.
To the
More
midterms,
fun.
yeah. Botnets, yeah.
Yeah. So the NSA director of cybersecurity, Rob Joyce, at RSA, which is a cybersecurity conference that happens in San Francisco, it just happened, I believe, last month, had a very interesting statement. He said if elections are subject to ransomware, or if there's a botnet that runs a denial service, what you will find is probably going to, in days and the age, escalate to be a trust issue. This is very true. And this is kind of like what we've been talking about. The trust is going to slip away very quickly as people realize how vulnerable they are. So on the next slide here, this is a contested subject. This is even worse than some of the other social issues, because people are being sued by this company. So I'm going to tread very lightly with this one. But Domino voting system was found to have vulnerabilities. I will say this much, as the CISA has done a lot of marketing to say that our election system was not compromised during the last election, and that there's no evidence to point to a compromise, which is kind of funny, I will say, because in like cybersecurity, you never say there's no evidence to prove that we weren't compromised. It was, we have no evidence to prove that we weren't compromised. But anyways, the CISA wants to play their game. They can play their game. But anyways, they posted this alert about ImageCast. It's an in-person voting system here in the United States. It uses both electronic and paper. So if you're familiar with voting in the United States, you can either submit electronic version or print out a paper version. But there are several vulnerabilities, and some of them are pretty interesting. So the vulnerability actually requires an individual to access the device. It requires access to the electronic management system, election management system, or the ability to modify a file before it uploads. Now, while these sound like giant hurdles, I can tell you in hacking, this these are not giant hurdles. Simple compromise of a computer gets you an electric management system.
Phishing.
Yeah, an evil, malicious insider going to individual devices. Oh no, they have hundreds of people. We've seen this. I mean, just recently there's a group of protesters that are all in the back of a U-Haul. I couldn't even believe they fit that many people back there, but
I found this
can move
USB in the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm going to upload it into this device. There's a lot of possibilities, right? And as of course, I'll say it again, CISA has said that there's no evidence proving that the domino voting system was actually compromised. But the vulnerabilities are interesting here. So improper verification of cryptographic signatures, not a problem, right? Mutatable attestation measuring reporting data. Reporting data is pretty important. Hidden functionalities, path reversal, execution with unnecessary privileges, authentication, bypass spoofing, incorrect privilege assessment, original validation errors, validation errors.
That is that is like a 101 course in online application programming.
Well, you know, it's crazy because people in the United States have said the election was compromised, and people said no, it was compromised, and now we have evidence that these things are vulnerable when everybody's pushing digital election. It's like, no, we should probably go back to just writing down on a piece of paper by hand. But we trust in the digital system. Anyways, CSA has addressed this. Vulnerabilities have been mitigated. They put out these mitigation steps, which I found hilarious. Is encourage voters to verify human readable votes on printout. Let me just put it this way. If we're using technology and we have to verify information that prints out, we're in trouble. That information being printed out should be 100% accurate, but that's my opinion on that. Anyways.
You have the right to your opinion, of course.
Yeah. Oh no, here we go.
Yeah, well, yeah. Just to reiterate that it's not only Russia, Ukraine, Russia.
What about the second half of 2022?
Yeah. The People's Republic of China. Well, yeah, they live in a good moment now because everybody's distracted or looking away and not just focusing in on what they're doing. So they're
also getting a great case study of how to take land. You know, that's the thing, is that the Russians are the first to do the invasion, right? And you have to assume that China might be sitting there learning and taking notes about how to deal with Taiwan.
Yeah. Okay. Besides that, they are still being monitored. So this is a CISA advisory that came out in June, so early June, and CISA, the NSA, and the FBI are still saying, "Watch out." They're still active. So as I said in the beginning, this war is just on top of what was already there. It's not that the other stuff has gone away. It's not like China is laying low and deactivated everything. It's not like North Korea is not interested in finding somebody printing here. I hope you cannot hear that.
Did Killer send you a note? You better
yeah. I think we need to move on from the subject of China to something else.
I was going to say, if a hacker sent you a note in the middle of a live stream, we have to give him credit. You just can't be upset about it.
No, it's a shipping label. It's okay.
Okay.
I have a good idea from which part of the house that one came from.
Is it from China?
No, from...
All right. Jokes are over now.
Yeah. So be aware, they're still out there. And yeah, it's a good moment to thread in something lighter. We just wanted to put in that slide to make the whole presentation lighter because it's so heavy, all these topics.
It's like we knew in the past that we were going to have a joke to segue from one to another.
Yeah.
That, that's a problem with security though. Like things are so serious, and then you have an incident like this where it's like you have to laugh. Like
that was an incident that was in the press, and that NetBlocks found out that there was an incident where the internet was disconnected in British Columbia, Canada, on June 7th, the same day that the CISA published that information about China.
Was it a Chinese beaver?
No, it was a single beaver. I don't know how the people know that he was married or not, but they call him a single beaver, or probably they mean one beaver, maybe.
He was a loner. He didn't have a family.
So a beaver somewhere in Canada eat through tree. The tree fell on the fiber cabling, and yeah, the internet was disrupted for a couple of hours. So, think I would say shit still happens, guys. You know, it doesn't always have to be a DDoS attack or a nation state or a malicious.
What was
Well,
the one like it was? I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. Some deep water system had got a photo of a shark biting an
yeah,
international cable,
yeah.
and that was funny because everybody had Wireshark jokes just for days after that.
Yeah, I just found it interesting, and consistent reporting by NetBlocks.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they called it the
but
Beaver incident. This will go in history as the Beaver incident in Canada.
just the funny point is that it could be nation state, it could be hacktivists, or it could be wild animals.
Yeah.
Or in my area, it could be someone with a backhoe that's drilling a hole and takes out the fiber cables. You never know.
Well, yeah, there's always physical infrastructure, unless we go through satellites. But then again, some people have a plan to make it rain satellites soon. So,
I'm a huge supporter of Starlink. I love that.
yeah,
Oh no, this
yeah,
you're good
I
to go
know this
there.
is a controversial topic, and yeah, we weren't sure if we wanted to put it in or not. But since we're talking hacktivism and we don't want to censor ourselves too much, because we're self-censored here. We're gonna talk about anyway. So SiegedSec did some leaks. Whether they're new leaks, that is not verified yet. But and SiegedSec has been known for doing breaches and leaks. But they came out on their Telegram say that they are ready to do some black hat stuff and time for some elite hacktivism. So there might be some attacks coming down. So just be on the
Well,
watch out.
one of the reasons why we decided to throw this into the slide deck is that in the past we've covered several hacktivist operations, specifically in the United States. United States has a large hacktivist community that's very reactionary, and generally when any court or official makes a controversial ruling, you will see hacktivists standing up. And so in general, with the Roe versus Wade overturning, we are suggesting to people to actually be aware, if they work in the public sector, that there could be attacks coming from hacktivists related to the ruling.
Yeah, it should not be a surprise if people take to the streets. If physical activism is happening, hacktivism will be around the corner anyway.
And
It's
there's
much easier
also
and it's much more anonymous than actually go in the street and yell.
right, and from a U.S. citizen's perspective,
Yeah.
there are several other controversial cases that the Supreme Court will hear in the near future. So it is expected that there will be some moderate form of hacktivism and impact as a result of the rulings.
On to the fun stuff.
Panchan P2P Botnet.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's always fun pronouncing these things. This is a good report. Akamai discovered a new peer-to-peer botnet, which Pascal could probably speak a little bit more about the popularity of peer-to-peer botnets, but this also has an SSH worm. Pascal loves peer-to-peer botnets, if you didn't know that.
Big fan.
This botnet emerged in March 2020, written in Golang, another fan of Pascal there. I don't know, Pascal, did you write this botnet? Just had to ask.
I only write anti-botnets.
Yeah, there we go. It's a way to do it. Anyways, it relies on a basic list of default SSH passwords to perform a dictionary attack, harvesting SSH keys after compromise.
That's an interesting one. It's a new technique we didn't see before. So relying on a basic list for default SSH passwords, well, I'm getting thousands of those in my honeypots every hour. However, once they're in, you have access to root, so that means that in the .ssh folder, you will have all the keys that you need, probably to get access to other stuff, because if that machine was actually used by somebody else root to get access to other systems, or that system is communicating or exchanging information and they're using a secure copy or anything else, there will be keys lying around for the taking, and that's a really good thing for performing lateral movement, and we have not seen that in bots before.
And so
Typically,
the interesting thing about that, even further about the lateral movement, is it's mainly targeting telecom, but they also talked about how it's targeting EDU. And the reason why they think that it's spreading so fast to EDU is because of the amount of shared SSH keys inside academia, which is a kind of interesting one there.
well, yeah. Well, inside academia, yeah, they probably have their terminal to central systems, and then they get access to other systems, so they remote shell into another one. And those keys is probably they are stored in secured folders. But yeah, once you get in as root, there's nothing secured anymore. All the
Right?
security goes overboard. It's like putting your password in a file. That's fine as long as nobody has access to the file. But yeah, when somebody compromises your system, all the bets are off.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's untypical for botnets to move laterally across the network. Typically, they're interested in the exposure and the public communication because they want to do DDoS attacks. They want to use it as a proxy. They might want to use it as miners, but come on, nobody ever made big money out of that one.
Well, I mean, I think there's also something interesting to be said about the shift from IoT devices to cloud, where we are seeing a lot of botnets that are now leveraging cloud devices over IoT devices, because what Pascal said is that originally, when you're coming from like DOS to DDoS with the IoT bots, IoT devices had more resources. They're always on and they're way more powerful. But criminals have found something even more powerful, more resourceful, the cloud, and they're leveraging that. In fact, what was it? The
same
what's
default
that?
passwords. They use the same default
Yeah.
password, so why not?
Yep. So interesting thing about it, it's modular malware. It includes a crypto miner, XMR rig, NB hash. I don't think there's any evidence of it launching denial of service attacks at the moment. But because of some slip ups and other things, they were able to attribute the attacker to a Japanese threat actor. And they also had an OPSEC failure related to displaying of God mode admin panel.
Yeah. So they revealed the link on Discord server of their God mode admin panel, and that's how they made an OPSEC error, and that's how Akamai found out about the bot.
Accidents happen.
Yep. Talking about critical infrastructure. And that being targeted by Chinese actors or by KillNet or by so it's not the right moment to start talking or publishing too much about vulnerabilities that we can discover in operational technology and OT that is actually in charge of industrial control systems, ICS, especially not when they're connected to critical infrastructure. But who was the company again who found this? Clarity, yeah. So Clarity discovered 15 vulnerabilities that was affecting the Siemens CNEC network management system. It's the OT, it's the network management system. So denial of service attacks, credential leaks, remote code executions. However, the most concerning one was, again, a chaining. It's not the first time that we see chaining of different vulnerabilities that lead to actually vulnerabilities that don't look that important at first glance, but when you chain them together, you get to a point where you have the cyber kill chain. People come in, they take foothold, and then they move laterally and they start to exploit one thing after another. So that's chaining of different vulnerabilities. So of course, in those 15, there were two when they are changed together. You can get the system access to the control system that controls those devices. There has been no information on how far this is reaching or how impacting this is or who is using that. But what was the controller again? Like 3 or 4 years ago, that was. Oh, I forgot. It was also Siemens, but there was a vulnerability that had a big name that went around.
Yeah, Siemens is a very popular target for both hacktivists and researchers looking for vulnerabilities. I mean, the OT technology is in almost everything that's critical. So
it's even in my pool. I had to hack it to get control of my pool.
Yep. Now you're gonna wonder why your pool's 100 degrees in an hour.
Oh, I wish, man.
Oh, it will be, and then you'll hate the bill that comes with it.
Yeah, exactly. Other vulnerabilities, yeah, I'm sure that everybody heard about this one. Atlassian Confluence, an OGNL injection vulnerability. We will come back to the OGNL injection part. Basically, unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability and Confluence server. 9.8 CVSS score, so very high risk, and all supported versions of Confluence that were affected. So yeah, when you have that high score, remote code execution without authentication and servers that are exposed on the internet, you can expect people to drive by your website and try to execute some stuff. And the way that it's actually executed, so the POCs were available since June 3, so publicly disclosed by Atlassian on June 2nd, and also fixes provided and reported May 31. So a really fast cycle of accepting by Atlassian. So you have to give them kudos because Volexity reported it on May 31st. They verified it. It was a zero-day exploit. And actually, Volexity found it after a threat actor was already had used it in an incident. So that was based on the report of an incident response investigation. So somebody was already hacked by it. So it is somebody who knew that that bug existed or that vulnerability existed. So it's a zero day at that moment. But they reported it to Atlassian, and they took priority on it, and they fixed it and disclosed all the information by June 2nd. Of course, POCs are not far off then. Once it's disclosed, June 3rd, the first POCs were already circulating on GitHub, easily accessible in everybody's favorite language, which is Python. So here's the Python sample. Since everybody loves Python, I did it. I copied a Python sample. So the payload is just like most remote command executions. In the orange part, you can see. Let me just make that bigger because probably that's gonna be fairly small for most people. But the orange part, you see the command, and that command is put inside a payload that you just can copy paste. You don't need to understand anything about the vulnerability. You just copy paste that stuff, then do a get to the host slash the stuff that you created in payload, and that's it. Off to the races. You have something that can infect and that can run a command. And if that command is then a download of a malware that launches itself, then you have yourself a small botnet that you can create easily. Now, why is it that probably it was a 0 day and that was already out there? It's because OGNL injection is not something new. And that goes back to the earlier vulnerabilities. When we talked about Log4Shell, for example, the Log4Shell vulnerability was new, but the GNDI injection that it's based on, the backend process that you can leverage to actually hack or break the system and have something remotely execute, that was not new. That was already existing for a long time. And there's an article here that's from 2020, I believe. Yeah, so February 2020 from Reshift, where they just give a primer on OGNL injection for Java developers because it's known. It's OGNL is Object Graph Navigation Language. It's like where you make Java server pages. So you know you have a page, but it's a template. You still have to fill in the variables in that page. So you render it on the server side and then you display the rendered version to the client. But there's like a template page where you fill in variables. And whenever you fill in variables, you're interpreting variables in strings. Whenever you're interpreting, that's where the bad things come up. So these vulnerabilities, of course, occur in the expression language interpreter. So he's trying to interpret it user supply data. So whenever you have a field and you take that field and you put it in a variable, somebody can put some bad stuff in there. And yeah, just proof to the point that I'm trying to make here. These OGNL exploits, when we look in our honeypot network, we see that they're already happening way before this exploit. So here's June 6th was a big peak, lots of scans going on, and there you see it's this CVE. It's this Confluence exploit specifically that is being used because it's the same string. So if you would run that string through base 64 decoders, you would come to this string. So that's basically what it looks like when you decode the whole string. So this came in, but that only started like June 4th or 5th that we saw these happening. Before that, there was already a lot of action going on in OGNL exploit attempts, because yeah, there are still vulnerabilities out there, still applications who use the same concept of OGNL. It's not limited to Confluence. So just another case to be careful. It feels like history is catching up with us, where you have all that Java stuff that now all of a sudden is the log for shell, spring for shell. It's not it's nothing for shell now, but it's OGNL. OGNL. Ah, yeah, it's good.
What's old is new again.
Yeah. Daniel, that's for you. You've been waiting for this one since the first slide.
It was my first slide, I think, on the original. Yeah. So the exploit was also used by 3 other groups. Dragonforce Malaysia, as I previously said in the first slide, was a Malaysian-based hacktivist group with a very active forum. Users are sharing knowledge for social credit and Dragoncoin, which is kind of funny. I think we talked about it maybe on the last one, but the information they post, they get these coins, they can go to a shop and buy things. The shop has like real cookies, and the cookies look really good. I have to say, like, they might be better at baking than they are at DDoSing. But anyways, the user had shared some information about how to leverage the exploit for OpsPatuk, which is the operation that's currently targeting India. Post up a nice little POC and information about how to leverage it and how to actually target it different sites in India, which is pretty advanced for a little hacktivist group. There was also Dark IoT and Kinsing. We're also seen leveraging these exploits. So both these operators have rapidly leveraged disclosed exploits in the past. In 2021, we covered Dark IoT several times and had leveraged over a dozen exploits. I mean, these people were using exploits within like hours of disclosure. They move very, very quickly. And like I mentioned before, it's because they're going after cloud devices. Unfortunately, I named Dark IoT. I probably should have just named it Dark. And also I learned a lesson never putting a dot or a period in a name. But yeah, Dark IoT doesn't just target IoT devices anymore. It mainly targets cloud services. So bad on me.
Lessons learned. Move on. The next one, we call it Dark Cloud.
Just gonna
Dark
words.
Fader. Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another vulnerability in the Mittel VoIP. So again, a 0-day. It was discovered by CrowdStrike. This time was in a suspected ransomware attack on one of their customers. The whole disk was erased. So the attackers that came in erased everything from that Mittel VoIP appliance. But they were able to recover forensic data, and they found how the attacker came in, and it was a 2-step exploit that was able to establish a reverse shell. So, and again, you see the exploit here. So you can just type it in your honeypots and find out if something is trying to get in, or you saw something similar came by. And probably you will have noticed, if you put that in your honeypot, you will notice maybe Kevin Beaumont coming by, because he saw that nearly 21,000 of those Mittel devices are publicly accessible online. Which gives a good estimate of how risky it is, because I didn't know Mittel before. You learn a lot from vulnerabilities. You learn a lot of new products, but
yeah,
apparently 21,000 is not less, and it's in UK, Canada, France, Australia. So it's in the Five Eyes, no?
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty interesting one there.
It is exactly the Five Eyes. US, UK, Canada, France. France is not.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think France is 5i.
No, it's US, UK, Canada, Australia, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have 6 eyes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, that's 5. Okay, that doesn't matter. So and this is how it looks, because it never really comes in as the URL that you expect it to come in, of course, because
so 5 eyes is United States, UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And 9 eyes is US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Denmark, France, and the Netherlands and Norway. Okay. So it's like we have one from the 9i group and the 4i.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to look that up.
Who's one eye? So this is what we found in the honeypot. So on June 26th, we found a peak of activity. Well, I would say a peak is 7 hits. So clearly it's somebody trying to scan to see if there's some vulnerability out there. And typically you would not see the actual command like $pwd pipe shell pipe question mark. That is the reverse shell that they're building as a command that they give through. You would not see that as the actual command, but you would see it encoded, of course. So, and it takes 2 steps of decoding because it probably passes 2 interpreters to get there. And that exploit just went back to a curl and did a /done, and /done did not contain anything on that IP that was attacking the honeypot. So there was actually probably not a exploit. I would say more a researcher that is trying to find out. And his user agent was whoa. So if that rings a bell to anyone who uses the user agent whoa, reach out to our chat. Come and chat with us. Tell us.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, and then to enter vulnerabilities, I thought we need some vulnerabilities in the cloud. So, or better, we need to talk about vulnerabilities in the cloud. We already have vulnerabilities in it.
Well, it's becoming a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but
cloud resources.
Yeah, and especially Envoy. Envoy is probably the #1 proxy element that's being used in microservices for cloud native applications. So when you have all those services, they need to communicate. Well, you put a proxy there, you can secure you can centrally manage all the communications through your services. It's very popular in cloud native application development and deployment. So Envoy has the possibility to decompress. So it's like a real web proxy. So it has the possibility to decompress gzip and Brotli data. But apparently there's an issue with the Brotli implementation that does not check the size limit of the output. So if you send it and you tell it that is not ending, it will just rip through past the end and it will continue to uncompress what's not there, let's say. So I call that a zip bump, when you send a small encoded file and that file is like exploding into a massive file that never was there because it's a vulnerable, it's bad coding, or it's a bug in the coding. It's probably more a bug that leads to vulnerability than anything else. But it is there, so it can bring down Envoy proxy service. So JFrog security, again, when it comes to cloud native, JFrog's always there. Found the vulnerability, disclosed it on June 9th. It already has fixes, so make sure that you upgrade your envoys if you have them running, and especially if they're publicly exposed. If it's not possible to upgrade, you can disable Brotli decompression. If you don't use it, you should have it disabled anyway. First rule of security, you don't enable what you don't need, right?
Exactly.
Least privileges.
All right.
Yeah.
Into the fun drama at the end here. I love this stuff. All right. So RSOCKS was a Russian botnet that was recently taken down. United States, German, Netherlands, United Kingdom authorities all worked together to take it down. So RSOCKS botnet was targeting IoT, ICS, Android, and PC devices. And basically what it was doing, it was a selling service. So they sold access to IP addresses, proxies. Mainly what people were using these proxies for were large-scale credential stuffing attacks, and users rented access to the pool. So it's kind of like booter and stressor service. You come in and you're either buying for like a day or a week or a month or whatever. And prices ranged between $30 and $200 per day, and that ranged between 2,000 and 90,000 proxies. Interesting, not a lot of attribution behind like what they're attacking or who's behind it, but the DOJ did come out and say that this was a Russian botnet. So interesting to see the takedowns continually to target Russian botnets. I think last month we talked about Cyclops Blink. This one's about RSOCKS.
Yeah, but has been going on for a while. That was already started in 2020, and the most interesting part to me was how they took it down. They actually bought access to the proxies, And then they figured out where the proxies were located. Then they went to the people who were infected by the botnet on US territory, and they replaced the proxy by a honeypot. And they just were able to track down how those actors were moving their proxies. Now,
And I want to build off that real quick. It's an
mhm.
interesting thing there is that the U.S. government and Western government agencies have been using a little bit more of advanced forward techniques to solve these problems. We saw with Cyclops Blink, the FBI actually hacked victims' computers to actually
And the
remove it.
encrypted phone network in Europe.
Yeah, and in this situation, you had researchers that bought criminal tools to reverse it, to figure out where it's at. And this is a conversation we'll bring up a couple times in these slides, but the change in CFAA, good faith research. If you are actually doing good faith research to take it down, then there is no crime of purchasing access from these criminals anymore. So, for example, if you wanted to start fingerprinting and looking at booters and stressors, there's no crime about buying those booters and stressors anymore, as long as that you're doing good faith, right? You're not actually launching attacks against or launching attacks in general. But it'll be interesting to see how the good faith CFAA change goes as far as allowing people to do more activities such as buying services so they can take down those services.
Yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to add here is that not all proxy services are illegal. So there is a possibility to bring up legal proxy service. So what is the idea behind a proxy service? You want to have, and sometimes it's more illegal than legal stuff that they're doing behind proxy services. But when you want to scrape a website, you don't want to come from Amazon, because all the bot management systems will know that if you come from Amazon, you're not a real user. You are a robot. So they will catalog you as a robot, and you will not be able to scrape just because from your location. What's the solution? You come from another IP that's sitting on a residential ISP subnet. So, and yeah, of course, you can do that by hacking devices, but there's also other ways. You can buy or rent pools of residential IPs from ISPs. And that's what other proxies providers do. So they rent a pool, a subnet from an ISP that is allocated for residential use, and they use that to create a server, and that server will go randomly through those different IPs. So every time that you connect through that proxy, you will get another IP, and your traffic will come from that IP. There's some legitimate uses of proxies, so to use it as a kind of VPN tunnel to do anonymous surfing, for example. But yeah, there's also bots, of course, who love that stuff because yeah, it cycles their IP on every connection. It comes from residential places, which gives them an edge already in the detection systems because they're not. They are given the not the confidence of the doubt, but the benefit of the doubt if they come in from a residential IP. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in, that there is some legal service. How they use it, is it legal? That we don't know.
It's like with a lot of things, you can get them, but how you use it's a different situation.
Yeah.
So Flubot was also taken down. This is a notorious mobile piece of malware. It was based, the takedown was based out of the cybercrimes team in Eastern Netherlands in collaboration with a number, I think it was close to like 11 international agencies. It's a very fast moving mobile malware, and it travels via SMS. So basically what happens is, an example over in the corner, the victim will get an SMS on behalf of a parcel delivery service. So like out here, UPS, FedEx, I'm not sure what you all have over there, but it will instruct the victim. Yeah, so it will ask the victim to download an app from the parcel services website, which is not really the parcel service website, but once it's downloaded, it will actually target your contacts. So it will look for your contacts, and then it'll start sending that malware to all your contacts in your phone. That's how it spreads. It only targets Android devices, and this takedown took down 10,000 victims. So the network is still like up and running, but they removed a majority of the victims. Now, the interesting thing about this is that the activity came out of Netherlands. There was a raid that had happened, I believe, in shoot. It was a few years ago. It happened in Spain, where there's multiple members arrested.
But
That's
they came
usually
back,
how it works.
yeah.
Yeah, but at the time when the 4 members were arrested in Spain, Flubot was notorious in Spain. So like it kind of moves from region to region. Law enforcement's definitely like scrambling to take it down. It's a very big threat. Like I said, it only targets
But now
Android
they're
phones.
confident. Yeah, but now they're confident that it's down for good, right?
I don't think they're
what I read.
confident it's down for good. They've only the reporting only said they disconnected 10,000 victims. So I'm putting words between the lines that they've likely disrupted Flubot in the Netherlands. And what will end up happening is that it will just move to another country and continue targeting from there, because that's the way it kind of works.
Yeah. Flubot is flying around.
Yeah, takedowns are tough. You know, it's sometimes you can take them down completely, and other times it's like I forget, it's like yeah, multi-head.
Yeah,
Hydra, there we go.
If it's a tool that's being sold on the underground, the tool will pop up everywhere.
So this is an interesting one. WeLeakInfo's and related domains were seized, and one of those related domains was something that we covered last month. It was the IT Army's booter and stressor service, or should I say their partner, was IPstress.in. And this was a booter and stressor service that was fairly large. They had actually put out they put out press releases about how big their botnet was. But it's very interesting to see this. I actually kind of missed it when the first report came out. I saw WeLeakInfo, and I was like, okay, WeLeakInfos.com had been taken down. Of course, WeLeakInfos.to is going to be taken down. But apparently, the operators behind WeLeakInfo.to also were running OVH booter and IPstress.in.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that the FBI took down the main sponsor of IT Army Ukraine.
Yeah,
that's like the headline, right? For me,
yeah,
this
but like
is the headline.
We know why this shift happened too. Like at one moment it was there, and then all of a sudden they changed their partner to a hosting service, and a few days later it came out that IPstress.in was actually rated. Now, it was likely not rated as part of IT Army.
No, absolutely not.
Going on for a while.
Yeah, this investigation has been going on for a longer time.
But it is interesting to see it happen, because at one point in time, the IT Army is like, "Hey, use a stressor service," and now the FBI is like, "No, that's illegal. We're taking it down." So, there are the interesting points. Like, I kind of wish that they would go so far to say like, "Hey, y'all shouldn't be launching DDoS attacks as part of a cyber war." No. But I get it. Like, this is what they did. They took it down. So I more or less wish they would have a comment about it, but this is it. We got it. It's down.
They could have started operating it themselves, no? Just rehost it in their own. They have a data center somewhere, no?
Yeah, they have special name servers that they use, so we won't get into that.
Yeah. Once you know your domain is parked there, you know it's game over.
Yeah, if you know what we're talking about, then you're probably laughing right now. But there's a way to tell if a website's been seized. So more seizures. SSNDOB, social security numbers, date of birth. It was a marketplace on the dark web. They had sold over 20 million social security numbers. Pretty impressive. But the service is seized and they claim dismantled. I'm not an expert on SSNDOB, but there's 4 domains that they took down. I believe there's actually more domains than that. It's possible that it could be a clone and a knockoff that's using the same login page and same URL type of standard. But there are a few SSDOB marketplaces I saw were online the other night. Anyways, IRS working with the FBI in cooperation with Cyprus and Latvia. What's that?
Could be fakes that are online. So be
yeah,
careful.
I mean, that happens a lot. So yeah, the IRS, FBI working with Cyprus and Latvia, they seized the SSDOB website.
It's a funny one.
Yeah. It's a tongue twister for sure.
Snowbee. Let's call it Snowbee.
Yeah, exactly. So Snowbee generated more than $19 million in revenue while they're operating, which, man, I have a hard time.
Revenue.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you see these criminals making this much money. It's like, dang.
And
y'all have a job opening?
the only thing they did is collecting leaks, you know. They didn't
Yeah,
even
you should
have
be
to do
selling
anything
information.
themselves. Just, okay, there's a leak over there, let's buy it, or let's just copy it and put it in our database.
It's absolutely amazing how much information of yours exists out there online for sale.
Repurposing information,
Yep, huge problem.
cutting and dicing and selling it on. Here's another one. I found it quite impressive. It's not 100% cyber, but it was published by Bleeping Computer, so I would catalog it as a cyber incident.
Yeah,
And I like that they have a cool name. It's Operation First Light 2022.
operation names are always so fun.
It's like the first time they see the light in 2022. It was led by Interpol, so it was more in my area. 76 countries,
Wow.
all working together, focused on social engineering crimes, so involving telephone deception, romance scams. Who doesn't like a good romance scam? Business email compromise, money laundering, everything related to bad stuff. But for us, most important, business email compromise and also social engineering, of course. Some of the highlights: a Chinese national who defrauded 24,000 victims out of 35 million US dollar.
Wow.
That guy had quite a good operation going on there.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I wonder if he worked for who he worked
Yeah,
in his spare time. 24,000 victims, man. That he must have been. This guy must have been on steroids.
oh yeah.
How many people can you call in a year? 24,000, and then defraud
What
them
do you
out of that much money?
what do you do with $35 million? I mean, I can buy a couple Lamborghinis, but I'm sure at some point in time you're gonna be tired of buying them.
Yeah, but yeah, the IRS must be all over you, no?
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
What?
Chinese national, so it doesn't
Yeah.
know if they're in China or not. But
What,
yeah, tax
what,
fraud is really how they get them.
what are you doing, Mr. Hung? Oh, I'm giving remote support. Look, always on the phone, making phone calls, getting a lot of
Well,
money.
that's how they got the Re-Evil Money Men in January, which they released. But it was because they didn't pay their taxes. You know, they made all this money
Yeah.
and they never gave the government their
Yeah,
share.
exactly. That's always the big thing. IRS is coming after you if you have money in your bank account and you cannot explain where it came from. You did not pay taxes for it. So
Yeah,
if you make
crazy.
illegal money, do a donation for the state.
Always pay your taxes on
Yeah.
crime.
So the operation lasted 2 months, and for 2 months, it's impressive what they did. March and May, 1,700 locations raided worldwide, 3,000 people identified, 2,000 people arrested. Can you imagine 2,000 people? See that in one room? That's a lot of
Mm.
people.
You
Fifth,
know the whole entire sect's mad when everybody operator, everybody comes in, everybody's sitting there in handcuffs. Like, they got you too? Yeah, they spotted
yeah,
me.
2,000. Yeah, but 2,000, come on, that's
Yeah.
in 2 months' time. So
You know
okay,
everybody's
that is
snitching when they
cleaning
get all
house.
2000.
That's cleaning house, I would say.
Yeah.
It should feel a little bit safer now.
So DownThem, the operator behind DownThem, Matthew Gatrell, he is a 33-year-old man from Illinois. He was convicted last year for running a DDoS service, DownThem and AmpNode. These were two famous booters and stressors. If you knew them, he launched over 200,000 attacks, and he was part of the 2018 crackdown. So there was dozens of booters and stressors that were raided and arrested at that point. Ultimately, he's going to be serving a 2-year sentence in prison for launching DDoS attacks. So if you think DDoS isn't a crime, you can write a letter to Matthew.
Yeah, but you have to do it soon because he's only for 2 years in prison, so it's not that bad, I
Yeah.
would say. And Daniel K, how much did he get? 32 months?
Yeah, so Daniel K should be released or
Yeah,
being released from prison in the next
next
month or
month.
so.
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
So Daniel, if you want to come on and have a
Yeah.
conversation with us,
You were on our minds last night.
we will be nice and respectful too. We really want to
We
have a
won't say
conversation
why,
if you want
but
to
you
have
were on our minds.
one. Yeah. So
Oh,
Peggy Thompson was convicted. This was the former Amazon engineer who was convicted for hacking Capital One. She was accused of stealing customer information from Capital One. I think it was like 100 million records. It was impressive.
yeah.
Her lawyers tried to argue in court that she was looking for vulnerabilities to patch but
Yeah,
was ultimately
ethical,
found.
ethical hacker.
Yeah,
People do that.
exactly.
Yeah, it's normal.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's red team and pen testers, but she went a little too far. To get into the drama of the case, the lawyers argued that she was just looking for attention and was trying to be what we consider an infosec rock star. So willing to break the
Yeah.
rules and bend the law
How about
for
using
attention.
that? How about using that machine for mining? How do you explain that?
Yeah. Exactly. So she was found
That's
guilty
funny.
of wire fraud and CFAA violation. And it was funny. It was noted she was not a good faith researcher. So we talked about this last month. CFAA, there was a ruling change that if you're a security researcher and you're operating in good faith, like her lawyers claimed, if you were really looking for a vulnerability to patch it, you'd have been fine. But if you had criminal intent and malicious conduct, you're going to jail. So I think it's in a few months that she'll actually be sentenced. It'll be interesting to see how much time she gets, but definitely convicted and found guilty.
Information nugget for those who do ethical hacking. Don't mine on the machines that you're hacking. It always gives it doesn't help your case.
Never.
Nice work, Paige. So that was actually one that we covered in our first series of the Hackers Almanac. So number 1 convicted. Who's gonna be next?
It's a story that just won't end. And this one's interesting. So I caught this article. I didn't see many people in the community pick up on it. Rough situation across the board. So the Mariposa Botnet.
Mariposa, yeah.
Mariposa Botnet. So the operator was actually, there's a retrial ordered for the case. And this is the sad thing. He was sentenced to 4 years and 10 months in prison. And he is 5 years in prison having to reface the case. So he has already served his sentence and he has to see the case. Now, this is where it gets interesting, why I want to bring it up and talk about it. This gentleman created a botnet. Well, the botnet was created by the DDP team. It's not sure if he was part of the DDP team, but he was the one that authored the butterfly bot. In 2009, the botnet was seized by authorities, but DDP hacked the authorities and took the botnet back, which I love that kind of stuff. I mean, I know that we're not supposed to support it, but that's hardcore right there. That's kind of cool.
That's Hollywood level, yeah.
Yeah. So then following that in February 2010, the members of DDP team were arrested. So, the fight starts and ultimately it ended with them going to jail. But then in 2010,
July.
July 2010.
Matthias Skorjank or something.
Thank you. The creator of the butterfly botnet was arrested for the first time, but he was actually released following his arrest because of lack of evidence. Then he was rearrested again in 2011 and was found guilty in 2013, where he's been serving his prison sentence since. But as I said, recently there was a retrial ordered because there's an issue with the case. But it doesn't mean he's home free because the FBI has actually issued an arrest warrant for him. So as soon as he's done, he will be extradited to the United States where he will serve his next sentence. Tough luck for this dude. Like literally tough luck for this dude. I feel for him. I mean, he's a criminal, so I'm not really supportive of him. But like at the same time, like you're sitting in jail, like, oh, I'm about to get out. This is great. And they're like, oh no, we got to retry you. By the way, the FBI is also going to take you when we're done.
Yeah. There's more people waiting in line.
Yeah. It was so brutal. But as I understand it happened with a lot of like the LulzSec hackers and other DDoSers from the last 10 years is that they've served their sentence in the country that they're arrested in. Yeah. But if they go and travel to another country that they've attacked, they face possible charges in those countries.
So Killer, I hope the message came over and you were listening. Be careful what you're doing and how you're doing it.
He's currently debanning all of his 3 million bots.
Yeah. We'll see it. If it's really 3 million, we should have seen it. So.
Is our website down? Nope.
My botnet's still running? Nope. We checked yesterday. All is okay.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Anyway.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for this interesting time and this fun time. It's always fun going online with
I love these. Yeah, they're always a fun, informative session.
Yeah, I hope it was informative for everyone and as fun for everyone as it was for us. And I hope we see you again. Oh yeah, next month. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the last Thursday of the month because I will be traveling, non-disclosing any locations or dates. But it might be that I'm not there, so it might be that it's shifted 1 week backwards. So it means into August. Um, or we just do one whenever we feel like it, because we always have fun with these. And I only announce it like the night before. I always forget to do the announcement 1 week before, but people should know it's mostly the last Thursday of the month, unless I say so in the previous version.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, look at that! Pickle was here all the time. Ah,
Sweet.
thanks for joining, Pickle. Great to have you on board. Okay, well, with that, thank you everyone, and see you next time. Stay
Take
safe
care. Bye.
and kind. Bye bye.